Okay, so in this video you're about to watch, this is part of a series that I'm doing in the course teaching how to build Power Platform solutions, mostly with Power Apps, Power Automate, SharePoint as a data source, and Azure OpenAI as the AI model. In this course, we're actually building a project dashboard, and this is the first video in the series on how to do that. We're setting up our Power App solution. Let's get started. If you want to join the course, you will notice at the end of this video, there's a QR code. It takes you right to the registration, or you can look at the link below in the description, click on it, get signed up. Absolutely free. This is just me giving back to the community. I hope you enjoy it. Okay, so in this video, we're actually going to walk through the process of setting up our Power App. And this is going to be critical because, one, out the gate, you have to select the correct Power App template to use. So what we're going to do, let's just make sure we level set here. So here's our wireframe. This is what we're going to be building. And as we design this in Power Apps, we basically going to take a multi-screen approach as we discussed in the previous course. And basically to do this, this is going to represent our screen. When you go to projects, that's going to represent another screen, and so on and so forth. When we get to projects, we're going to have to come up with an inner navigation, leveraging the top tabs, and come up with a pattern on, as you click on the different tabs, it shows and hide a container that respectively represent that tab. So we're going to put that framework in place. So to get started with this, there's a couple of things that we have to consider when we're doing a responsive design. So I'm gonna just click on apps. I'm gonna go to new app here, and I'm going to do go with start with a page design. And then once I get this screen here, it really doesn't matter which one of these three at the bottom you select because we're going to adjust them. But for our intents and purposes, if you look at the sidebar one, that's going to give us very close to the design that we're trying to implement. So here we just go ahead and select sidebar. Okay, so once you're in Power App Studio, let's go ahead and click skip to get rid of that prompt. And here we're very close to what we have here. You notice that, we have the header at the top. It's going to represent that. We have the navigation. Left navigation will represent the sidebar. And then we have the middle, which represents our section here. Now, if you look at this, let's take a little bit of time because, we selected that template for our Power App, and it automatically created these components over here on the left for us. So here, obviously we have the screen that represents the entire screen, and then we have a screen container. Now, if you're familiar with Bootstrap or Material or any other responsive design UI framework, you notice that, you start to stack these containers within a grid type system, and based on that grid system, it will collapse or expand responsibly based on the width of the device. So what does that look like? So if I go here to this preview button, and then if I hit this drop down, that I'm at the window size. This is if I'm doing a full screen solution, like if I have a desktop with a 32-inch monitor or 50-inch monitor, whatever the case may be, this is going to try to stretch from edge to edge in that screen. If I do canvas, this really kind of represents more of a tablet view, but you notice how my containers kind of shrink and fit that view. If I click on phone, let's just do the Apple iPhone, you notice that it stacks. It goes from that 2-panel view with the header to a one column view with the header, and then the panels collapse and stack on top of each other. So understanding like how this works, and you can go over here, you can switch the orientation, and this will automatically adjust for you. And that's what we want. That's the strength and the capability of being responsive. Okay, so let's go ahead and get out of here. So for our intents and purposes, we really want to, let's just start with our header. So we really want to start dropping in the components that we need. So if I keep referring to this wireframe, I have a logo, I have a text label that's one size, I have another text label that's a different size, I have another text label over here on the right, and then I have a drop down menu. So let's go ahead and drop these components on there. So the first thing I want to drop on, I really want to build this from left to right. So the first thing I want to drop on is my image control. And I may be using the word control and components interchangeably, but I'm really just representing the components that, here in this tree view. Okay, so I dropped my image on there. Now what I'm doing now, I love this left tree, this tree view of all my components, because that just kind of keeps almost like a map or a guide of where I am with these components on the screen. And over time, this is going to get very depth and very complex, and there's going to be a hierarchy that's going to be created. So, I try not to try to select items here because I can inadvertently select the wrong thing. So I leverage this tree view a lot to make sure I'm on the right component. So in order to add more, I'm going to select a header component again. Then I'm going to go to Insert, and now I want to drop in a text label. And that's just going to represent the name of the site. And then I'm going to drop in. So now I got the image. I got this text label. That horizontal rule is going to come with that text label. And then I'm going to drop in another text label to represent the other text. And the reason why I'm doing two text labels for this one is because I have two different sizes. If these were both all the same size, I can represent this with a single text label, no problem. Even if this was a variable or an item that would change from screen to screen, I would just update that variable to represent that change. Okay, so the other side, I want to do project, and then I want to do a drop down. So project is going to be another text label, so let's go ahead and drop that in. And then I'm going to drop in my drop down control. So let me just filter on drop down, and then we want to select that there. Okay, so now I have all that selected. Now, one of the things I'm noticing right away, and I should have caught this, and I noticed that when I selected on drop down, I do not have my modern components enabled for this one. And that's what we want, right? We want the latest and greatest modern components to take full advantage of the latest and greatest technology within Power Apps. So to enable that, here in the header, if it's hidden for you, hit this ellipsis, and you want to click on the settings option. Under settings, go to updates. And then right here, the very first option is modern controls and theme. Let's go ahead and turn that on, and then hit close. So now if you go to insert, you should see this new modern controls that have been dropped in. And then if you want to use the legacy ones, just go down here where it says classic. They kind of bury it at the very bottom. And then these are going to be all the classic ones. So far, I'm using the classic text label, and I'm using the classic drop down. I would prefer to use the modern drop down. So let me just go ahead and delete this one. So I'm going to select it here. I'm going over to the tree to make sure I got the right one selected, going to the ellipsis here and hitting delete. And now I want to select the header container again, hit the drop down, and then I want to filter on the modern drop down. So anything that says preview is going to be the modern, and I think they give it that purple icon to help distinguish the modern drop down from the classic drop down. So I'm going to go ahead and hit the modern one, and then that's going to drop that in there for me. Okay, I'm not too concerned with swapping these out. I'm going to stick with the classic labels for now. Okay, so now let's go ahead and get our spacing right, and then we'll go ahead and populate our components with the right values to represent our wireframe. So to get our spacing right, there's a couple things that we have to take into account. Now, let's go ahead and enable this setting, but there is a setting at the component level that will allow you, for the container, that will allow you to split the components into two groups, really just two groups, yeah. You're going to have one group that goes to the right edge, and you're going to have another group of components that go to the left edge. So to do that, I'm going to go ahead and select the header container, and then it's going to be this option here where I think it's called space between, and that's going to modify the horizontal spacing. So when I select that, notice that everything is evenly spaced between, but my end component is right justified. My start component is left justified. Everything in the middle try to evenly fill up the space. Well, this is not the design that we want. So in order to take advantage of this, let me do this. Let me screenshot this wireframe, and let's bring up the whiteboard. And I'm going to show you exactly how you need to think about this. And this is important, so I'm going to take some time to do this explicitly. I'm just using the snippet tool, copying this off. And then, okay, so let's just go ahead and copy this. And let's switch over to our whiteboard. And then I'm going to expand this out. Okay, let's get this centered. All right, so this is our wireframe. Now, this is what needs to happen. So which we have this header container, which represents this piece here. And then within our header container, we need to come up with another inner container to represent these components, and then another inner container to represent this set of components. And the reason for that is because, and that shouldn't be an oval, ignore that. The reason for that is because in the green container, let's switch over to my black pencil here. In the green container, this outer green, we're going to set the setting that says in between. And what it's going to do is it's going to apply the in between to the red inner and then to the blue inner to kind of force these to go to the far left and then to the far right. And then once you have that, now you can drop in the image component, the text label component for that one, and then the text label component for that one. And again, I got these two separate text label components because of their different sizes, and that's going to allow this group of three to be left justified. And then I have my text label component here, and then my drop-down component here, and that's going to allow these group of two to be right justified, and that's going to give me that look that I'm looking for. Okay, so let's go ahead and execute that. So now that I have this header in, let's go to Insert, and let's filter on containers. Now, when you have containers, you're going to have three sets. Right? This container is really just going to be a container is almost like a single cell. So anything that you put in there is free form. It will move along the sides, and you have to specify the XY coordinates explicitly. Whereas these containers, the horizontal container is going to stack your components left and right, and the vertical container is going to stack your components from top to bottom. Now, if you select the wrong one, or if you select one for one use case, and then as you're building your app, you need to switch it, you can adjust the flow for these containers. So I can take a horizontal container, drop in my components, and then set a setting to switch it to a vertical and vice versa. So you're going to have that capability. So don't get too caught up, but understand that what the icon represent is that this is a container, and when you stack components inside of it, they're going to flow left to right. This is a vertical container, and when you stack components inside of it, it's going to flow top to bottom. So in our scenario, we need a left to right. So I'm going to hit this horizontal container, and I'm going to adjust this to go to the start, right? And for here, I want to put in my image component, my first label component, and my second label component. I'm going to cut these, select the inner container, and then I'm going to paste those in. And now I'm going to do the exact same for the last two. So I'm going to go here, Insert, Filter on Container. And again, I want a left to right flow. Select these two, cut them, and then paste them in. Remember, when you paste them in, make sure you're selecting the container that you want to be the parent, and it will paste those in, making those the new components that are pasted in child components. Okay, so now we're very close. Let's go ahead and start dropping in our values, and then we'll come back and circle back on the spacing, because there are going to be some tricks that we need here. So for my image, I want to use that. Project icon. I don't know if I have it here. Let's see. I got a little bit of everything here, but it doesn't look like I have what I'm looking for. Okay, let's just grab a new one. So I'm just go to Google. I'm just say project icon. Go to images. Go to. They usually have an icon filter. Okay, and we can change this. I just want to use the project one. Yeah, so this is my guy here. And I'm going to right click this, and I'm going to just save this locally. I'm gonna actually create let's just call this Project Pulse. I like to create a folder, call it, I think if you learn in Adobe, if you take an Adobe class, I think they call it your Scratch drive. It could be a Mac term as well. But I always create a folder for my projects, and that way I can drop all my assets in there. Okay, so here, going back to my image component, hit upload, go to where I downloaded that icon, drop that in, okay? And then, now I want this to, and you have to play around with these settings. Do you want to fill? Do you want to fit? I think I want to fit, but I think I just need to adjust this image component to fit within my header. And so far, what's my current size? I'm 100 height and 100 width, which is a perfect square. And I'm gonna just drop this down to 80/80 to see if I can get this closer to what I'm looking for. And really, I'm just playing around with this. Let's try 70/70. There we go. I think 70/70 is going to be the trick. All right. And I'm not worried about the padding or spacing yet because, you know, we want to be very intentional on how we do that. And we don't want to hack it. Right. And when we get to that, I'll explain what I mean by hack. All right. So here I have my labels. So let me just go ahead and drop these in real quick. So this one is Project Pulse. Here and I navigate between, and I really didn't go through, and this is not the scope of this course to where I explain like every piece and component within Power Apps Studio. But just watching me, you would notice how I use the tree view for certain scenarios. I use the properties on the right for certain scenarios, and I use the property drop down for certain scenarios. And when I do that, I try to highlight the scenario that I'm using. But this is all subjective, and this is all personal preference on how you navigate between the two. The one thing I will highlight is that when you select a component, this drop down of properties is going to be the same as this list of properties for display as well as advanced, right? So if I select the one select property here and change the value, if I go to the exact same property for the selected component, I will see that value. So these two are one and the same. It's just a convenient factor of when you want to use one over the other. All right. So I just wanted to level set on that. So in this one, what I normally do, I select the property name, and that highlights the formula panel here. And I just go here to adjust it. So this one's going to be Project Pulse, right? There's a space, and then there's that horizontal line. And then the next one, again, I just go here and select that the text property to highlight the value here. What do we do in the wireframe? 1 second. All right, so then is AI Empower .smarter .manager. Okay, so I have that down. I need to get some more width here so to make that right, but we're going to tackle that. And then for this one, we're just putting in the word project, colon, and then our drop down. And to test this to make sure this is being populated correctly, I'm going to hold down the Alt key, and then I'm going to hit this drop down, and then you should be able to see it here. So that looks great. All right. And if you want to interact with the components in this way, you have to hit down your Alt key, and that just change it into almost like I guess a click event from like a user versus a selection when you're clicking the same component without hitting the Alt key, holding down the Alt key. All right. All right. So let me zoom out. Now let's work with our spacing and sizing. Again, this container 2, I want to have this right justified. So what I'm going to do, and this is an inner container, I'm going to select it, and then I'm going to go to my horizontal justify section, and then I'm going to hit right justify, and that's going to handle that. And then for these guys, I think I'm good here. The only thing I need to do with this label 2 is to stretch out my width. So here I'm going to just have that component selected, go to the width. It's currently 150. Let's just double that to a 300. Let's go a little bit wider, 350. And then I think that's going to be good enough. Now with my project pulse, so far I'm okay. But if I look at the wireframe, I'm in a much larger font size. So I'm going to guess and say this is probably a 20 font size. Let's see, let me go here. Where's font size? Here we go. It's 13 currently. Let's just bump it up to a 20. Again, it looks like I need more width because now I have more font size to play with. I'm going to go here to the width section. Let's just double that to 300. Okay. And that's way too much because what I want to do is make sure the edge of this is I'm going to create a space with the extra width, but I want to make sure the smaller label fits. So this is all playing around with this. Okay, so I landed on 175 for this. I do want to make this a semi-bold to kind of give a little bit more pop. Looks like 175 may not be enough because, so let's probably do 180. Okay, and then I want to do like a blue. So here I'm going to select, all right, so and I'm trying to keep in mind, like unlike my wireframe app, any color I selected, what it did was create like a memory of those selected colors. And that's just so much easier to allow me to go back to that same color when I'm branding this and kind of dropping this in. But this one, I have to remember where I'm selecting the color, right? So I do like a mental map. I do something like first column 6 down or first column 5 down. So let's try that. So yeah, first column 5 down, and this one here, first column 5 down for my font color, right? First column 5 down. Okay, so that's going to be that. I am going to bump this up a little bit, 15 for the font size in that one. And you notice how I toggle, one instance I set the size here, the other instance I set it's all convenient, it's all subjective, right? I think I'm going to put a semi-bold on this one. Okay, I think we're looking close to where we want to be if I zoom out to 100%. It even looks like this one may be a different font altogether, but we're not going to get crazy with that. I do want to bump this up probably to a 24. And every time I bump it up, I have to keep adjusting my width. I probably should get it to the size I want first, and that would just make this so much easier. All right, I'm settling on this, okay? Okay, so the other thing I want to do, and this is important, so I'm going to collapse these two containers. So I have my header container, and then I got my inner left, and then I have my inner right. If I need, you may run into this situation where you need more space on this side, and right now these containers are taking up a 50-50 width, meaning that they're just splitting the width in half, and that's going to be the size or the width of these containers. So I want to adjust this. The best way to adjust this is to use your fill portion. The fill portion is a critical piece, and you will see us use the fill portion a lot. And really, this is meant to handle the spacing between two containers within a given space, right? And you can define the number of grid columns, imaginary grid columns that you have in that container. And then they would just equally space those grid columns and then use up whatever portion, quote unquote, is needed for that piece. So in this scenario, imagine if we split this up in 4s, right? I probably would have, no, maybe we split it up in 5s. I probably would have this doing 3/5, and then this doing a 2/5 proportion ratio. So to do that, what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna just type in the number 3 here, and because I didn't specify this one yet, it thinks I'm doing a 4-column grid versus a 5-column grid. So to adjust that, when I go to container 2, I'm gonna put in the difference. I'm gonna put in the 2, and then it realizes I actually want a 5-column grid. This takes a little getting used to because you want to come in here and put in like the total grid count you want, but you have to be strategic and only put it in. But the good news is you're going to play around with it. You're going to get it wrong. You're going to adjust it. Then you'll be good to go, right? And once you figure it out, you're good to go. All right. So this is really shaping up the way we want it to shape up. Now, for this one, if we refer to our grid system, project is right justified and is butting up against this drop down for our project. So let's go back here and right justify this inside of a component, right? And I think that's it. Maybe we put a semi-bold on this one. We get a little pop, but I think that's it, right? And again, this may look small because we're zoomed in and we can't really get the full. You can go into preview mode. So let's do this. Let's go to window size here, or canvas size. And I don't know why that seems wonky. Yeah, I think we're good to go. Yeah, we can handle, here next we're going to talk about spacing and stuff like that. I think I have too much space here and not enough space here. And this vertical up and down, that vertical alignment is off. Like this, like everybody's to the top. So let's fix that. Let's fix the vertical alignment, then let's fix the padding. So for the vertical alignment, what you want to do is go to the head container, and it takes you a little bit of time to understand where you want to make this change, right? So sometimes you have to make the change in multiple places. So the first thing I'm going to do is do my vertical alignment to middle. So I'm going to do, and that's going to be on the header container. And I'm going to start there first to see if that fixes it. And that did not. That actually screwed things up horribly. So let's go back to start align or top align for that. The next one I'm going to play around with is this container here. And let's go ahead and put this in the middle. And what's happening here is actually in the middle. And I think this is where we need it to be. But notice how when I have this container selected, and this just happened, I don't know what we did to force this to happen like this, but the height on these containers is way past its parent container. So we need to contain that, right? We want to limit their height to only the available height of the parent. So to do that, I'm going to just select this, select height here. This is hard-coded to a 200. And we want to change this to parent.height. And that's going to be a variable, and that's going to force it that way. And we want to do the same for container 2. So for the height here, just do parent.height, right? And with that, now if I go down to container 2, switch that to middle justify for my vertical alignment, I'm very, very close to where I need to be. Now, I feel that this drop down is taking up too much width in this scenario. So here I'm going to go to my width container. My width setting. And then go ahead and adjust this out. Okay, so here, this is interesting. So I have a flexible width. I can turn that on or off. Okay, it looks like I want that. Hold up. I'm changing things. I don't have the right component selected. Okay, so for my width, this is 300. Let's go ahead, 320. Let's go ahead and drop this down to probably a 240. And again, you probably may be asking like, well, how do you know to do 240 versus 200 or whatever? As you can see, I don't, right? It's all trial and error. And I know when we get real data in here, I might have to adjust this again, but at least we know where to make that adjustment. The other thing I would probably, now I'm okay with the width here. I'm okay with, wait, I don't like that. Why do we have this horizontal rule? Let's get rid of that. We shouldn't have that. No, I'm sorry, that vertical line there. And that vertical line is actually coming from my containers, my inner containers. So let me select container 1. And what it is this drop down shadow. You see that? It's set to light. Let's turn that off. Let's say none. Go to container 2, drop down shadow, turn that off. Okay, so now it feels like it's just one continuous piece, even though we got inner grids or containers that's helping us with our spacing. So now we want to do for the header container is add some padding on the left and right, right? So here we go to the padding section and go to the right. Let's just start off with a 10, and I think that's good enough. And then let's do padding on the left, start off with another 10, and I think that's golden. All right. We're not spot on, and the wireframe is really meant to be a guide, right? So this is, let me pause here and explain the traps to avoid. You don't want a UI UX designer to come in and give you like this design spec where the pixel over here is specified, the pixel at the top is specified, the space between here is like, that's what we do for web design. This is not that. This is really meant, when you go from wireframe to Power App, it's really just, okay, here's a logo, here's the space, and this, everything is subjective. Notice that this font size is larger than this font size. This is using sentence cap. This is using all cap. Got it. This is right justify. You have a label here, but you're not specifying the font sizes or anything like that. That's a trap. You want to use this as many as the default font sizes, especially when we get to tables and foreign components and all this other stuff when we're dealing with dynamic data. These pieces here, we're okay to adjust, but it's subjective, right? So when you show this to them, it won't, like, the fonts won't be exact and any of that stuff. Like, we're just taking the default and rolling with it. We don't want to get caught up with creating a bunch of overhead with the design. That's one of the traps that you can fall into, and I've seen so many app makers fall into that trap. Okay, the one thing that's killing me from my OCD is this space that we have between these two, and I want to shorten that up by adjusting my two adjustments I can make. One, I almost feel like this is not large enough. Like, I want to go another font size up. Let's go 28 maybe. Okay. And that's what I wanted to see, because I wanted to adjust the font first, and now I have to be subjective in this one, right? All right. So I wanted to adjust the font first before I did my text box width. Okay. So now they're like, okay, I'm not touching it anymore. I promise. I'm not going to touch this anymore, because every time I touch it, I have to readjust my widths. All right. So I'm happy with the width there. And now let's do the width of the smaller text. Let's do 400. Okay, I'm comfortable there. Now I'm happy as a developer, super happy. I'm comfortable with this, okay? I was until I saw these things being cut off. So I need a little bit more height. Give me 1 second. Oh, maybe turn auto height on. There you go. So auto height will adjust based on the font size and the size that you're using. And because I have this middle line, this is always going to stay in the middle, and it's going to split the middle and automatically adjust the spacing needed top to bottom. Okay, I am happy. I'm stepping away from this. All right, so in the next video, let's tackle the bottom section area, and then we'll drop in our navigation, and then we'll start to build out some screens, and then we'll get into the naming convention. All right, so we'll cover that in the next video.